Welcome to art class. We are starting our atmospheric landscapes today. Let me share my screen and we shall get started. Alrighty, so we're starting atmospheric landscapes, and we're going to actually start out with this YouTube video that is going to just kind of walk us through what that means.
Hi everyone, this is Andrew from the Arc of the Arts. Thank you for joining us for the first in a continuing series of lessons. The focus of this week's lesson is atmospheric perspective. So what is atmospheric perspective? Well, if we break it down into the two words, atmosphere and perspective, atmosphere means the air around us, and perspective is how we see things. So if you combine those two, in the art world, we're referring to how we see the air around us. And more importantly, we're going to talk about how to show that in your artwork. So the first trick in atmospheric perspective is the farther the object, the lighter it is. So what this means is, as an object gets further away from us, there's going to be atmosphere between us and that object. So it gets lighter and lighter. So let's look at this picture. We have a mountain range. The mountain on the bottom is much closer than the mountain on the top. So that means the mountain on the bottom is going to be much darker. You see how dark this mountain is as compared to this mountain back here. And it progressively gets lighter and lighter as you move up the image. And essentially you're also moving further into the distance. The next trick is the closer the object, the more detail you see. So in this one, we're using two rocks to show our example. A rock up close, and as we go way into the distance, we have this rock back here. And we'll look at the amount of detail in this rock first. On the left side, there's a lot of highlight detail, and then on the right side, you have a lot of shadow detail. Whereas the rock back here, you don't really have any detail at all. It's just one flat color, but you still see the shape of the rock, so you can tell it's a rock. So there's the difference. The up close rock, you have a lot of detail. Rock far away, almost no detail. Here's a basic drawing showing what we just went over. Starting at the bottom and moving up, we're getting lighter and lighter with our colors. And we see two trees. The one up close is more detail and larger, and the one far away is smaller and much less detail. And that is a basic way to show atmospheric perspective.
Why, thank you, Andrew. All right, so let's just recap there. He told us the farther the object is, the lighter it is. And then the closer the object, the more detail you see. So those are going to be our guiding principles as we create our own atmospheric perspectives and our own atmospheric landscapes. So you can see those rules applied here, where the mountains in the back are lighter, whereas the mountains and hills in the front are darker. And you can also see here that there is more detail closer up, more details versus less details. Like it's hard to tell if I zoom in here. And this brown one here is a lovely illustration. You can see there's more details in the trees up front and less far away. Let's zoom out. So when you open up your work today, it'll look like this. I went ahead and I just popped in this image just so that just a little visual reminder of what we're going to do, which is to make sure our colors are lighter farther away. And then I've also just inserted a basic rectangle for your background, and I've just made it gray. And then, of course, if you want to change it later, you can. So the first thing I want to do is switch over to my polyline tool. It will start you out on line, which we cannot use. You'll use this little triangle pointing down to change it over to polyline. Once it's in polyline, we don't have to click on the arrow anymore. We can just click on the little Pac-Man shape. And then we are going to be creating our landscapes just kind of from our imaginations. But if you'd like to look at a picture, you can go to Insert Image, search the web. Ooh, excuse me, Insert Image. search the web. And I just typed in atmospheric mountains, and then I can just kind of like scroll through until I find a picture I like. I think I like this one right here, but I'm not going to insert it. I'm actually just going to leave this open off to the side to help me be inspired while just doing my best to draw it over here. So we're going to actually start with our shapes that are farthest away, the lighter ones. So I'm on Polyline tool, and I'm visually just kind of using this as my guide. I'm just going to start on the left-hand side here. I think I'm going to get rid of this border. Transparent. There we go. So you can see the polyline better. All right. And I'm just creating these little mountain shapes in the background. If that happens to you, that's okay. Just delete it and start again. Probably means that I need to click farther away apart. And this one just kind of goes off into the background. All right. Now, for this to actually turn into a shape now, I'm happy with that line. I need to click farther down. You can go all the way to the bottom or just like partially of the way down. I'm going to end up covering this. This is my back layer. Why don't I go ahead and make my border color transparent, and I can go ahead and fill with a light color. Now, the way that this is set up is like you already have it set up from light to dark. So if you just want to use one of these basic colors, that's absolutely fine. So let's say I want to do kind of like a pink landscape. So I can just set that as my farthest one back. Okay, I'm going to do it again. This time I'm doing the next closest one. I'm going to do this one on the right. And it's okay if part of it is a little bit above it. So like I'm going to start this one a little bit like right here. But then notice how most of it's going to be down below. And as long as I go below that line, it will be totally fine. Give me a second. My annotation stuff is in the way. Here we go. And you can see it didn't matter if I went all the way to the bottom because my line is going to get covered up by this next shape. And I want to make it at least one darker, maybe two darker. And I prefer to make my border lines transparent. I think that's nice. And guess what? We're just going to keep repeating that. As a minimum, you need at least 3 to represent far away, middle, up close. If you want something that's a little bit more engaging and interesting, then add more layers. So now I'm going to make this one even darker. Let me see if I can go all the way to the bottom. That is the bottom of my work. Good. And then let's do it again. Those could be my mountains. I want like one little point of a mountain like higher. Or I could do some like hills. I can also include some water. So if I want a layer of water, water would be a little bit lighter. But then let's do some hills in front of it. Let's go darker, and then this hill will be all the way in front. I'm going to make that one the darkest. Beautiful. That's nice. I got a little bit of water there. But I'm still just using one color. So I chose that pink. So you can see here it goes from pink light to dark. This one's farthest away, means it's lightest. This one is closest, that means it's darkest. And also notice how it's also lower. Things that are far away are higher up in the picture and lighter, and the darker things on the bottom. That is where we're actually going to stop for today. Moving forward next week, we will talk about how to incorporate images like the tree or a sun or little details that you want to include to make your work more interesting. But for this week, I really want you to focus on just capturing the different layers and making them light to dark. This is also a great time to incorporate some of your gradients. So you'll have to go to custom gradient. But let's say I wanted to go light to and do it like that. That'll give you that effect where it goes light to dark. So again, the way I'm doing that is I'm going to gradient custom. The first color will be the color that you originally had, and the second color will be white. That really makes it look like fog. You only do this for your mountain layers, though. Don't do this for your hill layers. So number 3, and then to white. Cool. So that is also a really cool effect that you can do. It is not required. If you would rather just have it be solid, that's totally fine. Okay, so let's just recap. I'm going to make a little text box here to recap what we did in terms of a grade today. Okay, so for landscape 1, let's make that bigger. Okay. Light to dark. Minimum of 3 mountain shapes. Can include water, hills, etc. Next week, add details like trees. So we're not done. I just want to break it down into multiple steps for us. So when I go to grade today, here's what I'm grading. Do your shapes go from light to dark? Did you have at least 3 of these shapes? Far away, middle, landscape. And you can include water, hills, etc. to make it more personalized. I cannot wait to see the beginning of your landscapes. It's going to be awesome. Stop my share, and I'll see you next week.